Good afternoon, everyone. This is the warrant review meeting for our annual town meeting for this May. Just to be clear for everyone at home, town meeting is scheduled for May 13th. And customarily, town meetings in Foxborough run one evening. But this year, we have 30 articles. So there is a possibility that this meeting will have to go into the second night. So please mark your calendars. We're going to do it on the 14th, so it'll be the 13th and the 14th. We apologize for that. We're going to be as expeditious as we can, but this is all important matters to be discussed and voted, so it really is important that the residents show up. Before the town meeting, however, there is an election. So that election is May 6th, and that's a very important election because we have a lot of contested races, or several contested races, and we also have a couple ballot questions, so they tie into town meeting. So in the essence of time, because we have 30 articles to get through, we're going to start right now. I have with me the team here that they will speak, and actually I'll have them introduce themselves just now so that we could go right through. So Chris, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Chris Gallagher. I'm the Director of Public Works.
Mike Grace, Police Chief.
Maria Almodover, the Finance Director.
And Marc Craig, the Director of Human Services.
Great. So this team will be here to help answer questions or give overviews of what all these articles are about. So in every town meeting, the first article is the election. As I mentioned, that is on May 6th, and it's especially important this year because we have some very contested races and 3 ballot questions. Article 2 is a standard to hear the report of town officers and act thereon. And then Article 3 is the reports of committees. Then we get into the budget. Article 4 is the budget. And we're not going to get into any details unless there's a question here, but the warrant has all the numbers and all the information, the sources, the recommended funding sources, so folks can review that budget thoroughly. Article 5 is the capital improvement budget for this year, and we have recommended for an update for master plans, some information systems. As always, we have police, fire, highway, waters and sewer, looking at capital. Any questions on that? Okay. Article 6 is also capital, and the reason we're doing 2 capitals is one was from last fiscal year. We didn't have a financial special town meeting last year, so we never got to do the fall capital budget. So this is actually FY24's capital, the second half of capital budget for FY24, whereas the last article was for FY25. So this includes a prisoner transport van, copiers, bus, some trucks, and some equipment for the highway and tree and parks. Article 8. Has to do with revolving funds for annual spending limits. This is also, I believe, a standard article, although maybe I would ask Marie or Marc, so I know you have one in there. If you could just give me a Cliff Note version of why we do this every year.
So I can jump in on that. So currently, so the way that the statute reads is every year, so any revolving funds that you have authorized, for example, the one that Marc has is the Senior Trips and Programs Fund. So essentially you collect a fee and then you pay the vendor out. That's where the name revolving comes from. So the current law basically says that town meeting yearly has to authorize the spending limits for these funds. And actually this is an article that we'll probably see go away in the future because right now there's a special legislation going through the process, and this will be one of the changes in the law. So going forward, unless you're adding a new revolving fund or changing the spending limit on any of them, you won't have to go to town meeting every year to authorize the spending limit.
I think it's worth noting that it's spending limit. It doesn't mean that we're actually going to spend it. So including with the trips and programs, if we have 2 senior trips that take in several $100,000, we'll hit that limit. But if we don't, we're certainly not going to anyway to close that. And it's the money that comes in from those trips and programs is the money that's spent out. It's not taxation. It's not tax dollars.
Thank you. Article 9. This is something that needs to be done. The town is receiving funds through the opioid settlements, and those funds have just been given to the town And I believe it went into the general fund. So now the town needs to transfer it out of the general fund into a special account to serve opioid services. So this is just a requirement to get it out of general fund and into the special account needed to be able to use it for the purposes intended. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Great,
Yep.
okay. Marie, would you mind taking these stabilization funds? 10, 11, 12?
Sure. So Article 10, so our fire department, they perform repairs for other municipalities' apparatus. And currently, the only allowable fund that we could create for such purpose is the stabilization fund. So every year, so Article 10 here is, so you first have to transfer the money. The money goes to the general fund as they're collecting the funds for these repairs. Then you have to transfer that money out of the general fund into the stabilization fund. So that's what Article 10 is. Then once you do that, you then have to transfer the money out of that stabilization fund into their budget to pay for the mechanic and the parts and the materials. So Article 11 is transferring money from the fire stabilization fund for the current year's budget. And then Article 12 is doing the same transfer out of that fund, but for the fiscal year 25 budget.
So, and the key thing to note here is that our fire department has been very resourceful in that they saw a demand for repairs, and they had the space to do it, and they were able to get really good mechanics, and now they've created this ability to not only repair our own vehicles, but repair others, and that is a profit-driven, then we are able to make money, and again, it goes into the revolving account and offsets some of the costs the town has and the fire department have. So it is somewhat of a profit-generating proposition that our fire chief came up with, and it's really working well. Otherwise, we're seeing year-long waits for fire truck repairs, and this puts it in our control. So not only financially beneficial, but workflow beneficial. So that brings us to Article 13. And Article 13 is extremely important for the town of Foxborough. This is the question that has to do with the DPW facility and the expansion. The first step in this is the ballot vote on May 6th. If the ballot is approved, then the town meeting approves Article 13, then we would be able to go ahead and go out and borrow to do the DPW expansion project. I think I'm going to hand it off to Chris, if you just want to give a 1-minute overview of why we need this and why it's so important to the residents of Foxborough. That'd be a great help.
Sure. So the existing DPW garage is now over 50 years old and hasn't been expanded on since that time. The department has grown, the town itself has grown, along with all of the fleet of vehicles that we maintain at DPW. So really, and this is listed as a DPW garage expansion. The primary use of this is going to be for the mechanics. So they'll relocate from the existing space into the new expansion. It'll give them more room to work on school buses, police cars, the COA van, all the school department equipment that they operate, as well as the DPW water and sewer included. So really, it's not just a DPW project. The expansion will serve every other department in town. We need more space. The number of vehicles that we maintain has grown exponential, quite a bit since we built that building 50 years ago. As well as the building, we're including a interior wash bay. So there'd be a way for us to wash our vehicles inside, connected to the sewer system where that water is supposed to go. That'll help meet our stormwater management requirements from EPA and DEP. It also includes a fuel pump upgrade. So the DPW houses the only fuel island in town, so that's gasoline and diesel. So that includes all of the vehicles that fuel up in town for town vehicles. The current system is over 30 years old, has underground storage tanks that are uninsurable. So the new system will bring those tanks above ground, new pumps, new dispensers, new technology that'll help us monitor that usage as well. OSHA concerns, safety concerns with the existing building, the way we're operating. The new space will be upgraded and meet all those standards so our mechanics stay safe as they're working on all these vehicles. And then it also allows us to utilize the existing building build out some of the space that the mechanics are using now. Currently don't have bathrooms on the first floor. There are no showers for the staff, so right now if they go out and they're weed whacking all day in the dust, or they're working with cement or asphalt, they have no way to clean up before they go home. So that would allow them to, clean up before they get in their personal vehicles and go home after a day's work. So those are some of the highlights. Certainly there's more detail out there. Foxborough Cable Access did a great video that has been posted on the town website. We're going to start to share that as well. And as Paige said, it is one of 3 ballot questions that needs to be voted on May 6th and then followed up at town meeting.
Yeah, thank you. And I know the main concern everybody has here, and we have a handout here, and this is up on the web in the resident's guide. But for Article 13, the estimated cost of the project is $16 million. And we do acknowledge, we know the ballot does not contain the amount. That is intentional. That's the way the law reads and requires. So the motion at town meeting will include the amount, but that is all done on purpose. It's the way the lawyers and the finance folks have set it up. But just for reference, for a $16 million debt exclusion, which is what is being proposed, for every $100,000 in your home's value, you would pay $26.90. So if your home's worth $400,000, then you divide that by 1,000, and then you'd multiply that by $26.90. So just so you know, so that's the number. And then an average single-family home in Foxborough right now is valued at $608,662. That's your average single-family home right now. And the annual cost of the DPW project alone would be $164 for that average single-family home. So just to give that seems to be what folks are really curious about right now, for obvious reasons. So that's the financials. We do have, like I said, up on the web. We have handouts here for all the projects, but that is, I wanted to make sure we got that information out there now. Okay. Any questions on Article 13? No. Article 14. So this is the women's locker room in the public safety building, the police side. And I think we do also have a video on that. Be sure to check that out on YouTube, Foxborough Cable Access YouTube. What I do is, just so you know, if you go on Google and you type in FCA YouTube, it pops up and you'll see all the shows that are available on demand, and you can watch them right there. So a little helpful hint. Yes, to Mr. Duma?
Are there any females on the fire department?
No.
If there were, would we have to get a locker room for the female firefighters? Or would they be able to share with their brothers in blue, or sisters in blue?
The fire department has 9 bunk rooms.
Bunk rooms, yeah.
So if there's a woman working, she has her own bunk, and upstairs they have men and women's bathrooms. So it's already kind of built into the building.
Showers.
Yeah, in their rest. in the
Thank you,
bathrooms.
Mike.
Mike, do you want to give?
Yeah, I'll talk about that. Article 14 is the police women's locker room. I know if you drive by the police department in the public safety building, you believe it's like brand new, and why are we having this discussion? Believe it or not, they broke ground in 2017, so it's 17 years old. And when the police department was built, there was 1 woman police officer working within the agency. 5 years later, we hired a second one, and now we are 6. Plus, we added the animal control officer, who is also a woman, and we've added a licensed independent clinical social worker who corresponds with the offices to calls and services. And the locker room is maxed out. It is a 24 by 24 square foot. I'm going to call it an afterthought when the building was designed, not because of anybody's fault. It just, you didn't see those kind of trends in policing. Here we are, 2024, and the need speaks for itself, why your police agency should look like your population. So we have met that goal, and we want to continue that, whether when officers retire or if we grow based on the needs of the community, and we can't do that currently right now. The women share 1 toilet, 1 sink, and
One shower, right?
And 1 shower. Part of the wellness programs for police officers across the board as an industry is the ability to stay healthy, work out, and trying to rotate the women through the restrooms and their workout schedules on the day shift is difficult because you only can have so many people in the locker room at one point. It's a very small project in scope. It's designed to push the women's locker room out 24 feet into the men's locker room, and then the men's locker room would push back out into the parking lot 24 square feet. Rather small, but rather needed at this point. And also within the scope of that is the lockers, both in the men's and women, would expand by 1 foot. When the building was built, they were 2-foot lockers, and that would hold some of your gear. Right now, that is not adequate. The uniforms have changed in 20 years. One specifically is the mandate for the your body armor. All of that has to hang, that all has to dry. And we really, really stress to the officers, don't bring your uniforms home because you don't want to be bringing stuff into your home. That essentially is the scope. I do ask the residents to please support this. I think the residents of Foxborough deserve and would want their department to have more women, and this is what we need to do in order to push that agenda. If anybody wants to come down and see the facility, come on down. We're open 24/7. I'll give a tour. I think when you walk in, you see how small it is, you'll support this. But any questions, you can call the police department. I'm there a lot. And that's essentially it.
Great. And just to clarify, this is being done sort of in-house, right? Bill
Yes.
Yukna and Tony and Carl from Facilities are going to be project
Yep.
managing this. So it's not like we're going out and getting a big consultant to do it. This would be something, we're doing it as affordably as possible.
The facilities division, Tony and Carl, they have their contractor's license. So they can be the general contractors, and they've already scoped out and gave a pretty good estimate of what costs are in order to make this happen. This is a total cost, is being asked for is $750,000 to keep us moving forward as a progressive police department. And that's what the taxpayers are asked to fund. And I think when you do the breakdown of what we're talking is probably less than a cup of coffee.
I could tell you.
Okay.
Okay.
You have the numbers.
I have the numbers. So for the police women's locker room, the estimated cost of the project is $750,000. Per $100,000 value of your home, it's $1.31. So for the average single-family home of $608,662, the cost to the taxpayers would be $8 per year for the locker room. So that's, again, we have all this information. And I just want to reiterate, this would require a vote at the ballot and then also a vote at town meeting. So it's a two-prong approach. The town meeting vote is a 2/3 vote. I should clarify that. Thank you to Marc for reminding me of that earlier, that all debt exclusion votes are 2/3 at town meeting.
So please spread the word, support this.
Okay, great. Did I believe you have a meeting to go to.
I do, but
Do
it's,
you want to excuse yourself?
sure, I
Okay.
think I'm pretty
You
clear
can
on the
stay if
rest.
you want, but I know you had something else going on, so I'll let you decide.
right.
Article 15, probably heard a little bit about this one. This is a little thing called the Community Center, possibly at 76 Main Street, and I know the folks in the audience are very familiar with this project. It is also a debt exclusion. We are estimating, based on the offer price of $2.5 million, and then some improvements that need to be done with an elevator, a generator, and either septic or sewer. We are estimating the cost to be $3.2 million. So I think I'm going to let Marc speak a little bit about this exciting project. And if you could also make sure that folks at home know why this matters to them. I mean, we have, we all know about the senior center down the street. This is more than just a senior center, right? So if you could just give us a little highlights of why it matters.
It most certainly is more than just a senior center. So conversations around a community center basically began in the mid-'80s, followed up through the '90s and early 2000s. And then in 2019, there was a feasibility study done. $40,000 was spent to do a study on would a community center benefit the residents of Foxboro between recreation, senior, and veterans. So that study was done, yielded positive results. Yielded a possibility of a new building, which would cost somewhere around $16 million, and then also 3 different locations. So back in January, a resident noticed that this church at 76 Main Street, the Foxboro ward, the Mormon church was for sale. The select board began negotiations. We also toured the facility with many inspectors, from DPW to HVAC to plumbing inspectors, electrical, through the building. Went through and just gave it a clean bill of health with a couple of issues, some things that need to be updated. But in the meantime, basically the idea is that a home for recreation, veterans, and council on aging in one location. The building is 17,000 square feet. To put that into perspective, the single first floor of the senior center, which was built in 1998, is 4,500 square feet. If you've ever been to the senior center, the parking lot is regularly maxed out on any given day, even for the most basic of programs, let alone when we have 100 people coming to listen to a historian talk about something in Boston from the 1850s. So we have the ability to move into a almost move-in ready church that would be a fabulous community center for the entire town of all ages.
Great, thank you. So I have the numbers on that. Mark, are you able to get I have a little slide thing.
Yeah, I think
Paul?
if Paul just has to switch that.
I have just some stuff on the debt exclusion while we wrap this up, the debt exclusion conversation. So just to clarify the costs on the community center, we're at 3.2 million. The per $100,000 cost, so again, for every $100,000 of your home value, you would multiply by $5.42. So that adds up to $33 a year. So just to clarify, the DPW was $164. Again, this is on a $608,000 home, would be $164. The police women's locker room would be $8, and Article 15, 76 Main would be $33. That's a sum total of $205. So, oh yes, a question.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why is the church selling their church?
Because they're consolidating.
The question was why the church is selling the church, and we don't really know. We've seen some social media, we've seen discussions. The sense we've been told is that they're consolidating with the church in Franklin. I don't know that it might be a newer church and bigger. We know Franklin is bigger, so I believe they are consolidating. Was that, Mark, what you've
Yeah,
heard?
that's exactly it. That's what the parish has said, that they're consolidating to the new branch in Foxborough. I mean Franklin, excuse me.
I asked because I heard gossip. And-
Mold?
What?
About mold?
The gossip I heard was that this church had a problem with flooding water. Is that not true?
Well, right, that's so that we had heard about the mold concern. We've got the 2 mold studies from the church they provided to us, and we've had our facilities team, Carl and Tony out there exhaustively studying it. So we have not found evidence of mold or we've seen reports that don't do. We did find some, we're looking into making sure that we don't have any water problems, and we're well aware of what's going on out there, and we have not found mold, and we believe that everything we have, that the situation can be readily addressed. So, Mark, anything better? You've been more involved.
Yeah, if you go to the town website, either under Recreation, Council on Aging, or Veteran Services, an entire link of all the studies that have been done. The church has done 2 studies in 2022 and 2023. Basically, I guess in 2022, someone overfilled the baptismal area. Just like if you overfilled your bathtub, you'd be a little nervous. They did a full study. They paid a lot of money for a company to come in and do a study. There was no mold. In 2023, someone walked by and smelled, and it smelled a little musty to that person. They did a whole other study. Again, no mold. All those studies are available for people to look at. And the only other area that we've sort of recently figured out is the underneath where the baptismal area is, the pipe actually goes into a different area. We just have to figure that out. We're also not planning any baptisms at the community center, so not really a major concern. That's actually something that the church actually plans to take out if they're not selling to a church. They actually are planning to remove the baptismal area and the steeple of the church. So not major concerns, just things we are on our radar.
It caught my ear because my house is on Phyllis Road. And to get to Phyllis Road, you can go up Jennifer Lane.
Mm-hmm.
And many years ago, all that land was zoned as wetlands. And then somehow it was rezoned. And if you go now, it's like a little lake, or not like.
I mean, we have had Conservation Commission out there. They came out, they checked it for us. We've had everybody, Board of Health, Conservation. Chris was out there flipping manholes. So we feel that we have done a tremendous amount of due diligence. We continue to do it. We have a due diligence period. We're continuing to do it. But so far, the facilities team has not found anything that they are concerned about that cannot be addressed readily.
Yeah, and if you remember, just a few weeks ago, we had that torrential rainstorm for several days.
No
We
flooding.
just scheduled an inspection just by chance the following day, not a single drop of water, and we went around basically on our hands and knees taking a look inside the building.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for.
Of course, no problem. Thank you. So I just threw a slide up to just make sure, we're really hitting home, because Foxborough doesn't do debt exclusions very often, so I want to make sure folks understand how this process works. So as we discussed, it's Article 13, 14, and 15 are debt exclusions. So on May 6th, in addition to the ballot, to the election for the seats on different boards and committees, there are also going to be 3 questions. So then the residents would be asked to vote yes or no, and that I made a note in there that there's no dollar, it's intentionally, there is no dollar amount on the ballot, but there will be a dollar amount you vote on at town meeting. So there you will be, it's not like a blank check you're giving us, don't worry. So we'll be doing the ballot first, and then if that passes, it can go to town meeting, and then town meeting requires a 2/3 vote because it is borrowing. And as we mentioned, we might have to have a second night unless we're really quick on the first night. So that's, is there another, what do I have? Might have one more. So this is the numbers up there. Just wanted to make sure everybody could see them. It's a little easier in black and white. Again, we have a handout. We have this on the web. That's it, and there might be one more. Yeah, so, and I'm not going to read these because that's annoying, but the main thing I want to make a point here is that these 3 projects, we talk about debt exclusion, 3 projects, they are 3 separate projects. So I want people to understand that if you support 1 and not 2, that's okay. If you support none, that's okay. If you support all of them. So really it's for the voters to decide which they support, which they're comfortable with, and those would be what would move forward. So if you approve 13, it doesn't mean you have to approve 14 or 15. So we just wanted to make it clear that they are not linked to one another. But the 2 votes, the one at the ballot and the one at town meeting per project, are linked to one another. So hopefully that's clear. That's it on that one.
And just make a quick point.
Of
So some
course.
people, when they've seen this or heard the number, the 200, if you voted for all 3 projects and you live in an average family home, the $204 is per year. Someone said, is that per month? And no, it's per year. So if you really think about it, it's like $12, $13, $14 a month to have all 3 projects at once.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are they going to do with the current senior center?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's our next article. Article 16 is to authorize the select board to dispose of that property, to sell it. Now, that said, so we put that on there, and that's our intention to do it. We've since been also discussing whether it makes any sense to look into rezoning that property. And that's a decision that needs to be made sort of at the leadership level, the select board, the planning board. I don't know who's going to make that decision. But right now, if the current senior center, we believe, could accommodate about 4 residential units, 4 housing units. Now, we don't know how realistic that is, how much it would cost for a developer to come in and actually convert that building into 4 apartments or 4 condos. I don't know how that would go, whether it would really make it worth their while. It may. But then there's also I've been talking to real estate professionals and other folks and trying to find out, what would the market be? Is it retail? Daycare has been mentioned. I think one of the other problems is not problems, but perceived problems, is that it's on sewer. And so some folks say, oh, well, it's a shame to waste, such a good building on sewer for just a couple houses. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what's been said. So we are going to sell the property, I believe. It's on the warrant to authorize the select board to do so. But I do want to mention that there might be some reconsideration if we find that we'll get more money if we sold it as a commercial property than if we sell it as a residential. And we're committed to looking into that. So, that makes sense. We could just go sell it, try to sell it right away, and that's fine. It just you might be leaving a little bit of money on the table by doing it that way. And that's a decision for the town leadership. Okay, so then Article 17. Mark, I'm going to let you do this one, because this has human services in it.
Sure. So this is a housekeeping article. So a number of years ago, the town manager at the time had changed over the Council on Aging Human Services to one conjoined department with Recreation and Veterans to Human Services. So this article basically is a housekeeping article, but also it pertains to when we take trips that the insurance covers actually covers the staff. So that means that any trips that are taken by Veteran Services or Recreation, the insurance covers for them as well. So it's basically housekeeping.
Great. Any questions on that one? Yes, sir.
Does it cover volunteers?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Mark, do you want to do the
Sure.
next article?
So for those who don't know, we have a senior veterans tax work-off program that's been authorized by previous town meetings. So what this basically is, the governor during the fall session, she authorizes one of her legislative acts to have it go from the annual amount that seniors can work up to, $1,500 to $2,000. So in turn, we then have to also adopt that locally. So what that would mean is seniors' hours would increase. It's based off the minimum wage. So this year would be 133 hours to actually get the full credit of $2,000. The timing on this is a little bit strange, so if people are currently involved in the program, they might not be able to hit that $2,000 this year because the program ends in October. But certainly in years forward, if this is voted in, the increase would increase to $2,000.
Great, thank you.
This is a personal question, because I would love to volunteer in Foxborough. So is there a plan to, or is there an attempt to increase the number of available?
So we've been very lucky in Foxborough where so far the opportunities are unlimited. I haven't been put a limit on by the two sitting next to me. So at this point, all people have to do is go down, meet with Kate Finieri or Kristen Pellerin, and then basically get on the list for when a department head comes up with a job. We're basically creating jobs one every couple of months. So if you're interested in doing something, meet with them.
It's on the list.
You're on the list?
Yes.
So you're on the list, so that's great.
But no, I signed up 2021, how many years ago was that? And I'm still waiting.
You should, if you've signed up before the last 2 years ago, I would reconnect with them both because.
I do it every year.
Good. So at this point, it's basically trying to figure out what you're looking for and if you have a very specific, if you just want to be a greeter at town hall, it's probably not, there's a long list for that. But if you say basically any job in the community, we can find a job for you very easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so we're on to Article 19, and because this is sewer, I'm going to pass it on to Chris.
Sure. So Article 19 is to amend the sewer service area map. This is a pretty standard article. I've been here about 10 years. The map was initially created in 2013. We've probably amended this 7 or 8 times since I've been here. What this does is it allows any residential or any property within the sewer district to connect to sewer. So this is taking a little different approach. Instead of adding 1 or 2 properties at the request of residents, we've actually taken a couple streets that have sewer on it and just added all of those properties along Moore Street to the sewer district. So now a resident doesn't have to wait to go to town meeting to get into the district. All those residents along Moore Street can now come to the sewer department, apply, pay the fee, and they can make that connection to the sewer. A couple of the properties on here, 76 Main Street, with the thought that we may connect that property to sewer, assuming the town purchases that, along with the public safety building and some other properties, the auditorium site, which I believe we have an article for later on, and some other properties over off of Payson and the public safety building are also included in this for future connection.
Great. Yes, Mr. Duma.
I'm familiar with those streets. I live near there. Only one street on Alden, Chris?
Yes, so
Only one house on Alden?
So that's the house on the corner of the lot.
Yeah,
So
there's 2 houses.
it abuts Moore Street as well. There's no sewer in that neighborhood, so we didn't add anything beyond the corner lots. So Joseph, Iris,
Yeah.
those are all corner lots
Yeah.
along Moore Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Chris, would you mind handling Article 20?
Sure, so Article 20, we currently have a intermunicipal agreement with the town of Sharon. There is sewer in Sharon that flows directly into Foxborough. Sharon does not have a sewer department, So Foxboro, because we accept that sewer, we have an intermunicipal agreement with the town to take care of that sewer system within the boundaries of Sharon. With the development of Sharon Gallery, we have looked to extend that agreement. Right now, we're restricted by law at 25 years maximum, and then we would have to go back and renew that agreement. The town of Sharon, town of Foxborough have gotten together and said, let's do this as a 99-year agreement. That includes a vote of town meeting, both in Sharon and Foxborough. Sharon has already taken that vote. Now it's our turn. Once we take that vote and we agree to make that a 99-year agreement, we have to go to the state legislature as a special act to actually have that enacted by the state to go beyond that 25 years. So this is really a minor thing. The agreement's set in place. It just means that in 25 years after I retire, somebody doesn't have to come back and try to figure this out again.
Great. Mr. Duma?
Is that hooked up to that new construction project that's opposite Shaw's, Chris?
Yes.
Is that the property?
Yep, so Sharon Gallery, that project has already, has an agreement with the Water and Sewer Department to buy sewer capacity. As they build out their development, they'll pay for that sewer. The existing Gavin's Pond Road has sewer, the Quail Ridge
That's on the other
subdivision.
side of Main Street.
That's behind the Shaw's Plaza.
Is
So
Shaw's Plaza on it too?
Shaw's Plaza is not on it. At the moment, they don't have an agreement with the town of Foxborough to buy it. It's the existing residents within the Quail Ridge Association in Sharon, and then the new development of Sharon Gallery.
So this agreement that, has to be, reignited, not ignited, but done again. Is it just for the capacity for what they have for that current construction?
So the agreement between the two towns that's the agreement that we're looking to extend. The purchase of the capacity, the sewer flow, that was a one-time agreement between Sharon Gallery, 95 LLC, who's the developer, and the town of Foxborough to buy that capacity. Once they buy it, they own it in perpetuity. So they won't lose that sewer capacity. This is really between the two towns for us to be able to go into Sharon and maintain that system within the public right-of-way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Article 21 is also somewhat of a housekeeping item. This is with respect to the Affordable Housing Trust. That's actually a committee that was created back in, I think, 2013, before my time here. We had some money that was given to the town associated with the Chestnut Green, former Foxborough State Hospital project, to buy down the affordable units. There were affordable units required, and then the recession hit. And in order to keep that project from fizzling out, it was agreed upon that they would not do affordable units, but they would instead pay the town in lieu of affordable. So we got $320,000 at that time, and it was put into an affordable housing trust. That money is, for the most part, still there, but the Affordable Housing Trust Committee and the Select Board have voted to allocate much of it to the Walnut Street Housing Project. So we do think that the funds may extinguish, but they haven't yet. We still have them. So in order to make sure that this Affordable Housing Trust doesn't expire, not the money, but the actual committee, the charge for the committee, we're seeking to extend it to July 1st, 2030. Now, like I said, we might not even have an Affordable Housing Committee in a couple years if we run out of money and we don't have any funding source. So we might get rid of it sooner than that, but I didn't want to risk having money in place in Affordable Housing Trust and not have Affordable Housing Trust. So this is pretty simple. It's just to extend the existence of this committee till July 1st, 2030. All right, now onto the fun stuff, planning and zoning. Article 22 has to do with the auditorium. Now, I just mentioned the Foxborough State Hospital. There was a reuse plan done years ago. And the project was always contemplated as sort of running the full spectrum, where you'd start out living in an apartment, you'd move up to maybe a condo, you'd move into one of the single-family homes or a duplex, and then this bigger home, and then ultimately start downsizing, and so on. The original plan always contemplated a an assisted living facility, but one was never put in there. So the next three zoning articles, 22, 23, and 24, would allow the town to start the process of doing procurement, because we have to do everything by the books, out in the open. We would basically allow an amendment to the Foxborough State Hospital reuse plan to allow two things. One, the auditorium that exists today, which is about to fall down, or at least the roof is in very poor condition, to convert that to 10 condominium units, that the building would remain, and this is the reason this was done, was so the building could remain, because we just got an estimate. The town cannot afford to redevelop that property. We looked at it for the community center, and we've looked at it for a variety of uses, and the cost to bring it up to compliance would be millions of dollars. The cost to tear it down would be at least $500,000. So that's where we were. We were like, either we're spending $500,000, or at this point, that's our only option. Then that's why we started to look into, well, a lot of people in town want to save that auditorium, also called the Assembly Hall. They want to save it. So then that's why we looked into the condominiums. In light of the MBTA communities discussion, we weren't necessarily wanting to bring forward more apartments. So that's why we're proposing the condo approach, so that it would be a home ownership opportunity for 10 people or 10 households. And we also would put in the requirement when we go out to bid to get someone to develop this, that the first right of refusal for these 10 condominiums would be for Foxborough residents. So we're trying to find a way to make this beneficial to the Foxborough community. The second part would be to allow a 84 unit, I think it's 84 or 82 unit, I'll check that, assisted living facility to be built sort of where Foxborough old-time residents will know the T building. I was not here for that, so I don't know the T building, the tuberculosis building, but I believe that is up on the hill behind, sort of behind to the right of the auditorium. And we're looking at that location for a possible assisted living facility. Because we have heard from numerous people here in Foxborough that there really isn't a true assisted living. We have the Doolittle home, but it's small, and and I think there's a lot of residents that would like to have an assisted living in town rather than having to go to Rentham or Mansfield or Norton. So that's what Article 22 would do, to zone it, to allow a change in the number of housing units and to allow the assisted living. Any questions on that one? Nope. Article 23 is similar. It's basically giving the select board the authority to enter into it, much like we did with the Pratt School. We were able to dispose of that, sell it. We put it out to bid, and we sold it for, I think it was around $87,000. We would be doing something similar, where we'd be disposing of the auditorium and the T building property. And then lastly, Article 24 is just because this was such a challenging and involved process back in the early 2000s or late 1990s. We put this article in here to allow the select board to work with if we need any special legislation. We do believe we do. So this article is to ensure that we can get whatever permissions we need from the state, because this is a former state hospital, to be allowed to do what we're planning. And just so everybody knows, we have been working with Senator Feeney, we've been working with Rep. Barrows, we've been working with DCAM, which is the Division of Capital Asset Management for the state. They're in support. In fact, I have another call with them on Friday. So we have a lot of positive momentum on this. So it's looking good at the state level. So we're looking for the townspeople to support these zoning changes and these articles to allow us to move forward and complete the Foxborough State Hospital campus. Any questions? Okay. Article 25, this is a citizen petition. And I don't want to speak too much on it because it's not the town petition, but generally John Mahoney is seeking to have funding. I think it's $100,000, but I think that will again be in a motion. The number I've been hearing is $100,000 out of free cash to look at a shared path from Foxborough Center to Patriot Place, and then further to connect it with Mansfield and possibly Walpole. So he's looking to get funding to allow this study to be done. And I will let him make that presentation at town meeting. And then the next one, the favorite of everybody's, Foxborough's multifamily overlay district bylaw. This is actually the MBTA communities bylaw that's been discussed all over the news, if you've seen what's going on in Milton and Rentham. As you know, the state has mandated, actually not even mandated, they changed the laws and basically have said that all towns that are considered MBTA communities, Foxborough's been an MBTA community for decades. Long before we got our commuter rail station, we've been in the MBTA district. So as such, we are required to provide 15% of our housing stock, new, zoned, as multifamily housing by right. Now, the key thing here is it does not have to be built. It just has to be zoned. So the law requires that a town zone for it. It does not require that it be built. So what we did is Gabby Jordan, Barney over at the chair of the zoning board, and I worked with a consultant that paid for by the state to develop a district. We have a map over there on the table that shows that it's 50 acres. It's within a half a mile of the commuter rail station up at Patriot Place. And it is basically sort of P10. It's the parking lot across from the stadium. We chose that location because it won't have an impact on any of the Foxborough residents, and it is within a half a mile of the train station. So this zoning district would achieve that. But we also, the key point on the zoning district is we wrote it in a way that is not, that kind of is consistent with our current bylaw. So for example, the density they're talking about, 15 units per acre, you could end up with a lot of high rises. The way we did it is the maximum height is still 35 feet and accessory dwelling can only be 21 feet. So that's something, you'll end up seeing these apartment buildings that are consistent with Foxborough. They're not going to be high rises because we set the limit to the height to not be so tall. So you won't see 5-story buildings. You'll see more modest. It'll be more like what you see out on the Foxborough Boulevard or that area, the 3- and 4-story buildings. So that is MBTA communities. It's quite long, but that would do it. And then so that's that article. And then Article 27 is, any questions? I'm sorry, on the MBTA communities? No. Article 27 is creating a definition for commuter rail station. Just because it's mentioned, we don't currently define it, so this is a sort of a housekeeping item where we want to make sure everybody knows what a commuter rail station is. Article 28, this was asked for by Barney Overt, again, the zoning board chair. This has to do, we came up when we were dealing with a group home recently, and we've learned that our current bylaw is probably not consistent with the current requirements of fair housing and current laws. So we've come up with, town council and Barney have come up with this definition that will be compatible, it'll be consistent with what the laws are right now. We do not want to get ourselves into trouble by being discriminatory. So this would satisfy that. And Article 29, more zoning definitions. Again, and then the purpose of this was to move all parking. There's only one a new definition in here, and it's for multi-level parking structure. But what we did do is take the word parking and then put all the definitions associated with parking under parking. Because what we find is when, say you're going to go to the zoning bylaw and you're like, oh, what's a temporary parking lot? You'd have to know to look under T. You might not think to look under T. You're going to look under P, parking. So we want to have everything under parking, and then that way you'll see, parking lot temporary or something. That's just an example to show that you don't have to search through every definition to find a mention of parking lot. And then lastly, another housekeeping item by our zoning board. This is accessory uses and structures, and it will clean up some inconsistencies currently in our bylaw. To ensure that we don't say that storage structure, in one place in the bylaw, we say it could be 200 square feet, and another place we say it could be 400. We just want to have one rule so that it's very clear. And that is it. Any questions from the audience? Well, thank you. We thank everybody for coming out. And again, to the residents at home, May 6th, May 13th, and possibly May 14th. And we look forward to seeing you at the election and also at town meeting. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.